Hello everybody and welcome back to Take Juan. Okay, it is time for us to talk about my most anticipated movies of 2024. That said, before I give you my list, just a couple of clarifications. First of all, this is not the list of the movies that I think will end up being my favorite movies of 2024. This is just a list of the movies that I am the most excited about. Now, second thing that I have to clarify is for the purpose of this list, I am only including movies that we know something about. For instance, apparently Jordan Peele has a movie coming out in December of 2024. I love Jordan Peele. I adore his movies. I think Get Out, Us, and Nope are all three exceptional horror films. I can't wait for his next movie. That said, we know absolutely nothing about this film. Now, the next clarification and the last clarification that I have to say before we jump into my list is that I am only including movies that, as of now, will for sure be released in 2024, which means that there are many movies that I'm actually very excited about, which I won't be mentioning and I won't be covering simply because we don't know yet when they will be released. These are movies such as Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein adaptation. I love Del Toro, I can't wait for this movie, but once again, we have no idea when it's coming out. Now, with those caveats out of the way, it is time we jump into my list. But before I give you my top 10 most anticipated of 2024, here are a couple honorable mentions. Now, my first honorable mention is Alien Romulus. I am a huge fan of the Alien franchise. I think Alien is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Aliens is one of the greatest action movies ever made. I think Prometheus is criminally underrated. I adore that film. And I also very much thoroughly enjoyed Alien Covenant. So I love this franchise. I was very excited as soon as they announced a new Alien movie. That said, I can't put this film in the list of my most anticipated movies of 2024 because of one reason, and that is the director. So this film is going to be directed by Fede Alvarez, which for those of you who don't know is famous for directing the reboot of The Evil Dead, The Girl in the Spider Web, and some other movies, and I don't know, I'm a bit hesitant. I don't really love either of those movies that I just mentioned, The Evil Dead remake or Girl in the Spider Web. And, from what I see from Fede Alvarez's filmography is he makes a lot of slasher movies, that are very bloody and very gory and, people die. And even though, yes, the Alien movies have some of those elements, for me, what I love the most about the Alien movies is that they go beyond a simple slasher. All of those movies are imbued with such philosophical themes about existential nihilism and also these big questions about who created us and where do we come from. So for me, that is what made Alien so special. Yes, you have the slasher elements, you have the horror elements, but you also have these big questions and these big ideas. So I am a bit scared due to the fact that Fede Alvarez is directing this movie, and I am a bit scared that he might take this movie in the direction of a simple slasher gory horror movie and not the intellectual sci-fi horror that we know and love from the original Alien movies. My next honorable mention is Ballerina, which is the newest movie in the John Wick cinematic universe, and this one will star Ana de Armas as a female assassin. I love the John Wick universe. I adore the John Wick movies. I think John Wick 4 was the best of the franchise and one of the greatest action movies I've ever seen. And I love Ana de Armas. I think she's absolutely amazing. So, why is this film not in my proper list? Also, pretty much for the same reason as Alien Romulus, the director doesn't give me that much confidence. This film is not going to be directed by Chad Stahelski, which is the guy who directed most of the John Wick movies. This film is going to be directed by Len Wiseman, who has directed a couple of the Underworld movies, the Total Recall remake, and Live Free or Die Hard. Oh boy, that's not a good combination. That's not what you want to see. So I hope he surprises me. I hope Ballerina is amazing, but right now, I can't get too excited because of the director that's currently attached to the project. Now, my next honorable mention is actually Mufasa the Lion King, and I know what you're thinking, just bear with me for a second. Let's just start by saying that I wasn't a fan of 2019's remake of The Lion King. I felt like that movie felt like a gross copy and paste of the original film that was just worse in every possible way, and I'm not a fan of the Disney live-action remakes. I think they are lazy. I think they don't add much to the original stories. I think they're just setting themselves for failure by trying to recreate some of the greatest movies ever made. I'm not a fan of those films. I hated the live-action remake of The Lion King. So, why am I excited for Mufasa the Lion King? First of all, this film is going to be directed by Barry freaking Jenkins, the director of Moonlight, Oscar winner, Best Picture winner Moonlight. the director of that film is gonna be directed this Mufasa Lion King live action remake movie. So that intrigues me somehow. And then, the biggest reason why I am kind of excited about this movie is because in several interviews, the people who are working on this film have mentioned that the story structure of this Mufasa film is going to be kind of inspired in the story structure in The Godfather 2. And what they mean by that is, The Godfather 2 is simultaneously a sequel to The Godfather, where we follow Michael Corleone and we see what happens to him after he takes over, the Corleone Empire. But at the same time, The Godfather 2 is also a prequel to the original Godfather, where we see, the origin story of Vito Corleone and how he started his empire and how he started, the family business. And what I'm hearing about this Mufasa movie is that apparently it is also going to be simultaneously a sequel and a prequel to The Lion King. It's going to be a sequel in the sense that we're going to see what happens after The Lion King, and we're going to see, Simba ruling over the Pride Lands and what happens next. But it is also a prequel in the sense that we're going to see the origin story of Mufasa and Scar. So that is a bit intriguing, that is a bit interesting, and that paired with the fact that it's going to be directed by Barry Jenkins, count me intrigued. Now, my next honorable mention is actually Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm a huge fan of the Planet of the Apes franchise. I think the original Planet of the Apes movie with Charlton Heston is one of the greatest science fiction movies ever made, with one of the greatest plot twists ever put to film. If you haven't seen that film already, definitely check it out. It is outstanding and it still holds up. So I love the original, but I also very much love this recent trilogy that, recently came out. Rise for the Planet of the Apes was amazing. I love Dawn for the Planet of the Apes. It is probably my favorite out of the three. And then also War for the Planet of the Apes, I thought was an incredibly thought-provoking conclusion to the story of Caesar. So I love those Planet of the Apes movies, and I am very excited for this film, particularly because it is meant to be a continuation of that recent trilogy. Now, the main reason why I am not including this film in my main list is, once again, the director doesn't give me that much confidence. The director for this film is going to be Wes Ball, which for those of you who don't know is famous for directing the Maze Runner movies. I thought the Maze Runner movies were incredibly mediocre, so I am kind of hesitant about this film, and I am hoping for the best, but kind of expecting the worst. That said, a teaser recently came out for Kingdom for the Planet of the Apes, and I thought the teaser looked amazing, so who knows? Hopefully, I'll be surprised, but let's see. Fingers crossed. My next honorable mention is actually Inside Out 2, and in any other year, under any other circumstances, this movie would definitely have been in my top 10, because A, I love Pixar, and B, I adore 2015's Inside Out. The original Inside Out movie, in my opinion, it's absolutely incredible. I love it. So why is this film not on my main list? Well, right now, Disney is not doing that great. Regardless of what division you look at, Disney right now is not in the best place. Whether you look at Marvel, whether you look at Star Wars, whether you look at Disney Animation, Pixar, Indiana Jones, Disney right now is not doing great. So it is difficult for me to get excited for a new Disney movie, knowing that most of their products and knowing that most of the films they've made recently have been, quite honestly, mediocre. And finally, my last honorable mention is Drive Away Dolls. I'm actually very excited for this movie. This film, Drive Away Dolls, is the newest film coming from Ethan Coen, which for those of you who don't know is one of the two Coen brothers. And of course, the Coen brothers are famous for making movies such as The Big Lebowski, Fargo, No Country for Old Men, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I absolutely adore them. I love their films. And I am very excited for Drive Away Dolls. It was very, very close. I almost added this film into my actual top 10, but right now, it's my last honorable mention. It almost made it into the list. But now, without further ado, here are my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2024. Now, to start us off, number 10, my 10th most anticipated movie of 2024 is actually Furiosa, which is a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. I absolutely adored Mad Max Fury Road. I think it's one of the greatest action movies ever made and one of the best movies in recent history. I love that movie, and I love the idea of George Miller, the original director of Mad Max Fury Road, coming back to the franchise and exploring the origin story of Furiosa, which is, of course, the character that was made famous by Charlize Theron in the original Mad Max Fury Road. This time around, Anya Taylor-Joy will be playing a young Furiosa, which has me very, very excited. And once again, George Miller is returning, the whole team is returning. I can't wait for this film. I am very, very excited, and I hope it's good. Now, my number 9 most anticipated movie of 2024 is Beetlejuice 2. What can I say? I love the original Beetlejuice. I think it's an incredibly, incredibly fun movie. I think the original Beetlejuice film, which came out in 1988, is Tim Burton at his best, at his most creative, at his most dark, but also at his most funny. I love the original Beetlejuice. I think it's an incredible, incredible movie, so I am very excited for a Beetlejuice sequel, and I think there is a lot of potential in making a Beetlejuice sequel. Michael Keaton is once again coming back playing the ghost with the most, and Tim Burton is once again coming back to direct this film. And I know Tim Burton's most recent films haven't been the greatest ever, but I don't know, I have faith. I trust in Tim Burton, I trust in Michael Keaton, I love the Beetlejuice story, and I think it has a lot of potential to expand that universe, so fingers crossed this movie's gonna be great, and Beetlejuice is my 9th most anticipated movie of 2024. Now, number 8 is actually Robert Eggers' remake of Nosferatu. I love the original Nosferatu for what it is. I think it is incredibly impressive and, definitely one of the best, most influential silent movies ever made. And I can't wait to see what a director like Robert Eggers does with a story as interesting, as famous, as influential as Nosferatu. I love Robert Eggers. For those of you who don't know, Robert Eggers has directed amazing, incredible, thought-provoking movies, such as, The Witch, which in my opinion is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. He also did The Lighthouse, which is one of the weirdest, most surrealist nightmares you can ever watch. And then he recently directed The Northman, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest historical epics of all time. I think The Northman is criminally underrated. You should definitely check it out. So I love this director. I love his work. I love his artistic vision. I love the themes. I love his visuals. I love the stories. I love the way he tackles his films. And I can't wait to see what he brings to the table with Nosferatu. And everything that we've seen so far from this production looks insane. Now, my number 7 most anticipated movie of 2024 is actually Gladiator 2, which is once again gonna be directed by Ridley Scott. What can I say? I love the original Gladiator. I think it's an incredible movie, probably one of my favorites of all time. I adore the original Gladiator, so of course I'm excited for Gladiator 2. This time around, for obvious reasons, we are not following Russell Crowe's character, but this time around, apparently we are following the son of Lucila, which, for those of you who don't remember, Lucila was the sister of Commodus, which is Joaquin Phoenix's character, so that's kind of interesting. And also, this time around, we have a bunch of new faces joining the cast. For instance, we have Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, Mando himself, and of course, many more that I'm not going to mention, but the cast is very interesting. The fact that Ridley Scott is returning gives me a lot of confidence, gives me a lot of faith. Now, I don't know if this has been announced or not, but the last piece of the puzzle that I need to get announced for me to be very, very hyped about this film is Hans Zimmer needs to be back to compose the score for this film. I think Hans Zimmer's original score for the original Gladiator film is, in my opinion, his best work. It is the best songs he has ever made. I think Elysium, Honor Him, and Now We Are Free are just chef's kiss. Some of the greatest songs in any movie soundtrack ever. So please, Hans Zimmer, come back, do the score for Gladiator 2. We need more Elysiums. We need more songs of that quality. Now, my 6th most anticipated movie of 2024 is actually Wicked Part 1. And yes, this is an adaptation of the first half of the famous Broadway musical that came out in 2003, which is also called Wicked. I used to not be the biggest fan of Broadway musicals, mainly because the only Broadway musical that I had seen for a while was Cats, and I didn't like Cats, and in my mind, I thought all Broadway musicals were like Cats, so, I kind of wrote them off. That said, in 2020, during the pandemic, I watched Hamilton when they released it in Disney+, and I absolutely fell in love with Hamilton. I not only think it's one of the best musicals I've ever seen, but just one of the greatest things I've ever seen, period. I adore that movie. I adore that musical, and that very much opened my mind into, accepting more Broadway musicals and seeking out more of these stories. And then, throughout this year in 2023, I ended up listening to a bunch of Broadway musical soundtracks, And probably the one that I loved the most was the soundtrack for Wicked. I instantly fell in love with that soundtrack. I found it incredibly enchanting. I thought the soundtrack was full of so many earworms, songs that just wouldn't leave my head. And on top of that, I thought the story was incredibly original and incredibly intriguing. You know, the whole idea of seeing a story as famous as The Wizard of Oz from a different perspective was something that I very much enjoyed. So yeah, I loved listening to the soundtrack, and I am incredibly excited for this movie. And if I'm being honest, everything that we've seen so far about the production of Wicked Part 1 has me even more excited. You know, some of the pictures that have been coming out showing the incredibly expansive, huge sets that they are building in order to film this movie. You know, just to give you a little fun fact, in order to film this movie, instead of, using CGI, which is what most movies would do, instead of doing that, they planted 9 million tulips in order to create a set that was meant to be a tulip field. That is insane. I can't wait to see this. I love the fact that they're using practical stuff, practical sets, which is, of course, very reminiscent to the original Wizard of Oz, which also used some incredibly big, colorful, lavish, opulent sets. And on top of that, I think the cast seems really, really interesting. I think that the idea of casting Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba is a great idea. I am very intrigued by the fact that Ariana Grande will be playing Glinda the Good Witch. I can't wait to see what she brings to the role. And then on top of that, you also have some incredible actors joining the cast. For instance, apparently Michelle Yeoh is going to be acting in this film, and the one and only Jeff Goldblum will be acting as the Wizard of Oz. Like, come on, what else do you want? Now, my fifth most anticipated movie of 2024 is Deadpool 3. And I know, I am aware the MCU is not what it used to be. Marvel movies are not what they used to be. The past couple of MCU movies have been ranging from mediocre to absolutely terrible. That said, I'm still excited for this movie, and I still have hope in Deadpool 3, mainly because of one reason, and that is Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds cares about this character. He clearly cares about Deadpool, and so far he has done a great job, creating amazing Deadpool stories. I think both Deadpool movies are amazing and some of the best films in the superhero genre. And the truth is, everything I'm hearing about Deadpool 3 has me more and more excited. First of all, the fact that freaking Hugh Jackman is coming back to play Wolverine is incredibly exciting in my opinion. I thought his days as Wolverine were over, in Logan, but I am glad he's back. I'm glad he's doing it again. I'm glad he's finally acting side by side with Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. I can't wait to see the jokes, to see the action, to see the carnage. I think this is going to be incredible. So Hugh Jackman coming back has me incredibly excited. Also, we've been hearing that apparently the TVA is going to be involved in Deadpool 3 somehow. I love the TVA from, Loki Season 1 and 2. I think Loki Season 1 and 2 are, two of the greatest things that have come out of the MCU post-Avengers Endgame. And also, the fact that apparently Tom from Succession is going to be playing one of the TVA agents in Deadpool 3 has me incredibly excited. I love Succession. I love Tom. I can't wait to see this actor again. And him as a TVA agent, come on, give it to me. I really hope they cast, the actor of Greg also as another TVA agent. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but, a man can wish, I guess. And also, on top of all of that, some of the rumors about some of the characters that might be showing up in Deadpool 3 are incredibly exciting for me. I love the X-Men movies. I used to be a big fan of the Fox X-Men cinematic universe. I love those characters. And the fact that a lot of people are saying that many of those characters might come back in Deadpool 3 has me incredibly excited. On top of that, knowing Ryan Reynolds and knowing the type of meta humor that he likes to infuse into his movies, I just know he's gonna make some great jokes about the fact that Fox has been bought by Disney. I can't wait to see what he does. I think it has a lot of potential. Everything about this movie sounds great to me. And yes, once again, I know the MCU hasn't been what it used to be. The MCU hasn't been great in a very long time. That said, I'm still excited. And if I'm being honest, I think if there's a movie that can bring the MCU back into its greatness, if there's a movie that can make Marvel movies once again an event, You know, a thing that everyone is going to, that everyone is talking about. If there is one movie that can recapture that magic once again, it's Deadpool 3, in my opinion. I can't wait for this movie. Fingers crossed. Please, please don't be disappointing. Ryan Reynolds, I believe in you. Now, my number 4 most anticipated movie of 2024 is a little film called The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Why am I so excited about this movie? Well, I freaking adore The Lord of the Rings. If you know me, you know that I often say that the 3 Lord of the Rings films could very well be the 3 greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. I love that world. I love those books. I love those characters. I adore Middle-earth. I can't get enough of those movies. And the fact that they're making a new Lord of the Rings films focused on the Rohirrim and focused on apparently a legendary battle that they had before Lord of the Rings has me incredibly excited. Also, this film is going to be animated, which I'm also very interested in because, animation lends itself for, infinite creativity. You can draw anything. You can draw armies as big as you want. You can literally draw anything on a blank page. So I'm very excited to see how they use that medium to their advantage to create some epic visuals that would be very difficult to capture in live action otherwise. And then, the next reason why I'm also very excited for Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, apart from the fact that I love Lord of the Rings, is that apparently the main character in this film is going to be voiced by the one and only Brian Cox. Yes, Logan Roy himself. Once again, second Succession callback in this video. I love Succession, and I love the fact that Logan Roy will be voicing the main Rohirrim fighter in this film. Now, my number 3 most anticipated movie of 2024 is actually Mickey 17. Many of you might be wondering, what the hell is Mickey 17? Well, let me tell you. Mickey 17 is the new film from South Korean director Bong Joon-ho. I adore Bong Joon-ho. His most recent film was a little movie called Parasite, which ended up winning Best Picture at the 2019 Academy Awards. I adore Parasite, but Bong Joon-ho has also made other incredible movies, such as Memories of Murder, Snowpiercer, Okja, many more. I love his work. I love this director, and, just due to the fact that this is his newest film, makes me instantly excited in this movie. But on top of that, apparently it's like a science fiction film that is all about cloning, and the main actor is Robert Pattinson. Count me in. I can't wait. I'm gonna be there day one. I'm incredibly excited. Now, my number 2 most anticipated movie of 2024 is Joker Folie à la Deux. I am definitely saying that title wrong, but it's a French word, Joker Folie à la Deux. And why am I so excited about this movie? Well, it's simple. I love the original Joker. I think 2019's Joker is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. It is also one of the greatest character explorations with one of the best performances I've ever seen in my life, given by the great Joaquin Phoenix as the titular Joker. I adore that movie. I think Joker is absolutely incredible. So, of course, I can't wait for its sequel. The fact that Todd Phillips is once again coming back to direct, the fact that Joaquin Phoenix will be once again back playing Joker, and the fact that this time around, Lady Gaga has joined the cast to play the one and only Harley Quinn. That makes me incredibly excited. Also, I think this movie has a lot of potential, of course. For everyone who watched the original Joker movie, you know that the first Joker movie ended with Joker in Arkham Asylum. He has been interned in Arkham Asylum. So, the fact that Harley Quinn is going to be a big part of this movie makes me think that, this film is pretty much going to be an adaptation of Mad Love. This film is going to be Dr. Harleen Quinzel trying to fix Joker, but unintentionally, she's the one that ends up going insane. I love that. I think there's a lot of potential in this story, and if I'm being honest, all of the pictures that have come out of the set of Joker 2 look incredible, and on top of that, the fact that Todd Phillips has said in interviews that this film will apparently be a musical has me incredibly intrigued. That is a very bold move, that is a huge swing, and I hope it pays off. I can't wait for Joker 2. Fingers crossed it's gonna be good. I'm very excited. Now, my number 1 most anticipated movie of 2024 is, of course, Dune Part 2. I'm sure that this is not a surprise for those of you who know me already, because I adore the Dune story. I've read the first 4 books in the Dune series, and I absolutely love them. I think my favorites are, the first Dune book, written by Frank Herbert, is just absolutely incredible. And I think the 4th book, God Emperor Dune, is just one of the most thought-provoking and philosophically dense pieces of fiction that I've ever read. I adore this story. And on top of that, I thought that the first Dune movie, which, came out in 2021, directed by the great Denis Villeneuve, I think that film is just one of the greatest adaptations in film history. I adore that film. When I was reading the first book, in my mind the whole way through, I was like, oh my god, how would anyone adapt this into a visual medium? How do you adapt Dune into cinema? And I thought Denis Villeneuve absolutely killed it. I thought that breaking up the story into 2 parts was definitely the way to go, because there is just way too much for it all to be covered in one single film. Just ask David Lynch. That didn't go very well, if I'm being honest. But I love the first Dune movie. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favorite movies of 2021. So I am incredibly excited for Dune Part 2. The trailers look insane, and some of the new actors that are joining the cast are just pitch perfect. Like, dude, come on. Austin Butler, Elvis Presley himself as Fade Routha, which is probably the most dangerous of the Harkonnen. That is incredibly exciting. Also, Florence Pugh joining the cast as Princess Irulan is perfect. And then last but not least, Christopher Walken as Shaddam IV, the Emperor of the Known Universe. Dude, that is perfect casting. So yes, I can't wait for Dune Part 2. The trailers look insane. The book is amazing. The source material is amazing. The first movie was incredible. The director, Denis Villeneuve, is just one of my favorite directors working nowadays. He has made masterpieces such as Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, Incendies, Prisoners, Sicario. He's an incredibly talented filmmaker. I love the original Dune. I can't wait for this movie. And that is why it is my number 1 most anticipated movie of 2024. March 15 can't come sooner enough. So yes, that is my list. Let me know your list of your most anticipated movies of 2024 down in the comments if you want, or if you don't. But that has been it for this episode of Take One. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have some movies you're looking forward to now. But that has been it. Goodbye.